Welcome to the fourth and final all-time roster cut day show, and we begin the show with a massive surprise out of Chicago. Jay Cutler with a brutal preseason spelled by Billy Wade, who played good enough to win a job against the Browns. Harbaugh's the number 3 behind Sid Luckman. There's a look at the Bears QBs. Big development out of Indianapolis as well, as Burt Jones, the former NFL MVP, beats out Andrew Luck, and Tony Romo in Dallas with a big game against Miami secures the 3 spot over Dak Prescott. Meanwhile, Jags quarterback Blake Bortles had a horrific preseason, completing just 34% of his throws and threw his way out of the final quarterback spot in a loss to the all-time Rams. Greg Landry was the front-runner to win the final QB spot in Detroit, but a rough game against Buffalo gives Jared Goff the final spot. And deja vu in the battle between Greg and Zorn again. This situation played out in the 80s, and it's playing out here. Craig, the 3rd QB in Seattle. Another quarterback released in Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts outshines Ron Jaworski, and he will back up McNabb and Cunningham. Look at his numbers in the preseason throwing and running the ball for Philadelphia. He'll be the 3rd QB for the Eagles. A few more quarterback decisions across the all-time rosters franchise. Cousins over Tommy Kramer in Minneapolis. And for the New York Jets, Chad Pennington was awful. Vinny Testaverde takes the 3rd spot for New York. And finally, the all-time Ravens announced Lamar Jackson as the day 1 starter. An outstanding all-around performance against Atlanta helped him win the number 1 job. No number 1 job at receiver for Dwight Clark, but he does beat out Ayuk in a heated battle for the final wide receiver position. It took the most receiving yards on the team to win that final spot for Clark. At running back in San Francisco, the Niners figured they may as well keep McElhenney and McCaffrey, who both have been outstanding in the preseason, which means Garrison Hurst is the guy on the chopping block for San Francisco. Meanwhile, Lee Evans joined him in the chopping block on Sunday. James Lofton did just enough to win the final roster spot over Evans, who says, "Fine, I don't want to be on this team anyways." Well, good riddance for Evans. All I need is 1 shot to prove to you that I can play in this league. Hilarious coming from the GOAT at wide receiver. He had no catches in the preseason for the Raiders, and he has been shockingly released. Just give me a shot. This is my 1 chance. You know, Aaron, I think you've had enough shots. Francis is the 3rd string tight end. The 4th and final string for Chiefs running back belongs to the Nigerian Nightmare, who humiliates Abner Haynes in that final running back battle for Kansas City. Humiliating receiver battle all the way around in Cleveland, but Amari Cooper and Ray Renfro emerge as the final wideouts for the Browns in favor of Josh Cribbs and Braylon Edwards. Edwards was tied for the league lead in drops and did next to nothing in the finale. The same can't be said for the Eagles' Harold Jackson, who ran wild in the finale against the all-time Jets, and the Eagles made the tough decision of choosing him over great Deshaun Jackson for the final wideout position. It was an equally tough decision for the Jets, who picked Wayne Chrebet over Garrett Wilson. Chrebet, the unsung hero for New York. Plaxico Burress edging out the final receiver spot over Hakeem Nicks for the all-time Giants. And finally in Miami, Chris Chambers. A big touchdown against Dallas, but he does lose out the receiver competition. Here's a look at the Miami wideouts led by Paul Warfield. And we are here, finally, the final 53 best players of every NFL franchise. On the bottom, Deron Bland released in favor of Trayvon Diggs, who did just enough to win the final cornerback spot for the all-time Cowboys. And in the next group of cuts, Green Bay Packers corner Willie Buchanan beat out Al Harris for the final cornerback position. These are the complete list of cuts in preparation for the all-time rosters franchise regular season. The greatest players of every franchise to determine the greatest franchise of all time, and the regular season begins next. This is Charger Dude 95 for the all-time rosters franchise.